All right, so I've here's Mark Dice's comments here again on this story about this poor young lady who is no longer with us, murdered in cold blood. Excuse me. And I'm going to read it again here. Mark Dice writes, "I got that white girl he murdered after stabbing Iryna Zarutzka in the neck 3 times on the train. This is why they didn't want the full footage released. An evil thug brainwashed by endless propaganda from the mainstream media and charlatan black leaders they prop up into hating white people and believing we're all complicit in a conspiracy to keep the black man down." So I'm going to kind of pause right there because after after this whole thing, I went back and I looked for and I started watching again the documentary that I watched a couple years ago with my mom, which was absolutely eye opening. I mean, it really blew my mind, which was Uncle Tom 2. If you haven't watched the documentary, you got to watch it. Yeah, I'll probably even post a link to it. It's on YouTube now. It's demonetized, of course, but it's on YouTube. You've got to watch it. It truly is an eye opener. It has changed my entire perspective of the civil rights movement. It has made me truly come to a point of like where I was kind of questioning Martin Luther King Jr. to a point now. It's like, yeah, that guy wasn't good. He wasn't a good guy. Yeah, I'll say it. No, he wasn't good. Civil rights movement was bad for America. Not for the reasons that you may think. Not because I don't like black people. Not because I hate black people. No, that's not what was actually going on. If you watch this documentary, he goes through and shows you what happens, what actually happens to the black community after slavery ended, and that they were actually doing very well. They actually did well for themselves. There was segregation, and I'm not trying to say segregation was a good thing. I would never say that it was a good thing. However, here's the thing we have to understand: at least in segregation, they were better off than they are today. Their family structure was. You can go watch it. Go watch it. Look at what life was like in the black community in the 1950s, the 40s, up into the 60s. What happened? It kind of reminds me of like life in Afghanistan up until the 70s. I always noticed that whenever I would watch, whenever I'd see videos or any pictures of Afghanistan women or just life in Afghanistan, when it was like you'd think you're in a Western society because it's so well developed. The women are just trying to dress like normal people. They're going to school. And there's like these big universities, Romanesque looking buildings. It's beautiful, and you're like, this is Afghanistan, yeah. But you also notice all of those are like early 1970s. Never any later than that. After 1970, the 1970s, things were different. Why? Well, because the Cold War and the Afghanistan war that happened over there changed everything. So when you start seeing things of life before, this bad event or whatever, and life was good before that, you got to start asking. I mean, there's a natural question that should follow if you're an actual critical thinker, which is, what the hell happened? What? Wait a minute. Something doesn't add up here, especially when it comes to the civil rights movement. When we look at all this amazing footage of these decent people, well dressed, who thought so well of themselves, family structures were strong, Sunday schools, every week, all that stuff. And you look at that and you just go, wait a minute, I thought we were supposed to believe that after slavery, because I remember when I grew up, I was taught, I remember thinking slavery ended, but not really, basically. Like, it was like the white people were just like, well, we may not be able to own you guys anymore, but we're still going to treat you guys like dirt. Like, that's what I thought. And there is some truth to that, but not, again, this is the thing with history, right? It's not so clear and so obvious. There's some truth to it, but it's not. There's more to it than that. History is nuanced. It just is. That's just the reality of it. Anyways, so there was a time when the black community was actually doing very well for itself. That all changed when the civil rights movement, quote unquote, started. The civil rights movement was just a socialist, communist movement, and it did the same thing that's happened to all of American society. It's a slow, subtle. Certain agitators come in, and they start making certain statements, and it starts to anger people, and just stuff into their heads bad ideas. That's basically what happened, and it really genuinely convinced people that they were being oppressed when in reality they were doing very well for themselves. What they come in and see, this is what happens. So the black community, they were in their own little areas of society, but they were building businesses. There were many of them who were wealthy businessmen, and all that stuff like that. They were just a great family structure. What happens is these agitators come in and they basically tell these guys, yeah, but why do you guys got to be here? Well, you should be over there. You should be over there, and you should be over there. And there's some truth to that. They should be able to go wherever they want. But the way that these agitators handle that is they basically say, what we're going to do is we're going to leverage the government to force this to happen. And whenever the government gets involved and it takes control of, it's like, the local market down the road or whatever. Let's say the local market was decided they were just going to only sell food to a certain group of people. Obviously an outrage. But if our answer to that is the government's going to come in and take over that local store, well, then the government controls it. You haven't really solved it. You've traded one bad thing for another, and just assumed the government was just going to do what was good. Well, what happens if the government decides, we need these people to be more compliant to government policies? We're going to withhold food from everybody until they comply to whatever we. And don't tell me that wouldn't happen. That's happened. I mean, history is full of ideas like that, of just examples like that. What you should do instead is go, you know what? What people should do is go, that business over there, they're only going to do business with certain people. Well, screw them. We're going to do our own. That's how you solve it. That's how you fix the problem. But that's not what these agitators did. Because what they did is they come in and they rile people up, and then that causes societal instability for mostly nothing. And it just works on people's emotions. The thing, too, is that in Marxism and in socialism, what's so attractive about these, first what you do is you dumb down a society, in this case the black community. You dumb them down enough, you get them in the government schools, and then you just basically turn their brains to mush. And you have to excuse me, too, my sinuses are a little stuffed right now. Sorry, but you basically dumb these people down enough, and they become useful idiots. And it's a harsh term, but it's just the reality. They become useful idiots. Useful idiots are easy to control. They can be told things, and they're not going to check it out. They're not going to question it. Especially when it relates to them. When you tell these black kids on the streets, as has been told to them the last several years, that they're oppressed, that the system is working against them, they're going to look around in their environment and they're going to be like, yeah, it looks like I'm oppressed. I'm living in a terrible neighborhood. I can get shot and killed in a couple minutes. Who knows? Every day is a day of survival kind of thing. Growing up in the hood and all that stuff like that. They're not gonna question that. They're just gonna take that, because what you're doing is you're taking their lack of critical thinking skills, so they're not thinking logically. When a person's not thinking logically, what takes over is emotion. And so you just basically steer the emotions, and the critical aspects go away, and what comes in is the emotions, and they just basically and the other thing too is really attractive about it is it turns them into victims. So now the reason why they're living in poverty, it's not their fault. It's the system's fault. The reason why I'm sitting off and just, sitting in the front yard or in the corner and smoking weed and blasting terrible music and talking about these guys, talking about those guys, and thinking about going shooting these guys or whatever. The reason why the point is that's just what these people do like all day long, pretty much. Most of these people. The reason why I'm like that in their mind, the reason why I'm like that is because of the system. That's it. It's got nothing to do with me. It's the system. You know, that's that. Then they just chew that up because nobody, especially weak minds like these, who've never been held accountable to their life, they have never had any influence that had tried to push them to be better people. None of that. They don't have any of that stuff going on. You know, and don't sit there and tell me, oh yeah, they do. They got people telling them they got to survive in the hood. That's not no. Those are just other poor, pathetic losers who are teaching you to be another pathetic loser like them. That's not no. If you have somebody in your life who's actually trying to challenge you to be better, they're going to tell you to get a job, and they're going to tell you to do well at your job. I got a friend right now. He's older than me, and he's always like kind of pushing me, kind of saying, Chase, why aren't you like managing that your business, the place you work at now? You've been there long enough. You should be able to have a managerial position. And I just kind of just like, man, dude, yeah, he's right. I go on autopilot a lot, and I just, it's on me. That guy challenges me. He challenges me to be better. He's not being mean to me. He just wants me to be better. That's not what most of these hoodlum guys are doing. They're just like it's like what's his face, Rampage Jackson and his son. Rampage just constantly berates his son. He doesn't encourage him. He doesn't try to make him better. He thinks what he's doing is how you make him, but that's because Rampage also grew up in the hood, so he doesn't really know how to be a kind of that correct kind of father. All he knows is just the hood, the hood life, and the hood life is just like kill or be killed kind of thing. That's not being a man. That's not how you teach young men to be better. But that's what you have in this kind of in this world. And it's not just black people, but we're talking about a black man who just murdered a white woman. So let's just talk about them. This is the black community, by and large. They are uneducated, and uneducated people are easy to manipulate. I mean, Al Sharpton, or Reverend Al Sharpton, whatever, Reverend, goes into these places and he's just with he's very good at this too. He just knows how to stir people up with his long, drawn out words and talking like this and all that kind of stuff like that. And it just gets them all. It just gets the emotions riled up. Nobody sits there and just going, what? Or something like that, just like nobody's questioning it because he is making them feel like victims. He's riling them up, and they're going, I'm not the way I am because of me and my lack of willingness to get myself out of the situation because I can't. I can't. That's what they're told. You can't. There's no way out for you. The only way out is to burn it all down. That's what they're told. And they just buy it hook, line, and sinker and destroy their own communities and make life even worse for them. None of it helps. It just makes everything worse. And that's what these people want. They want to destroy American society and replace it with a communistic type society. That's Saul Alinsky, all these guys, that's what they were doing. Look it up. That's what they were doing. And the uneducated are the easiest to manipulate. like this guy saying, I got that white girl, whatever. Um, Another, a fatherless man. I guarantee you, he's fatherless. His mom just basically kind of abandoned him, um, and it's not. You kind of feel a little bad for her, sort of. It's There's only so much a mother can do. Sorry, guys. There's only so much a mother can do. A boy needs a father. He needs a father. He needs a father more than he needs a mother. He needs both, but more than the mother, he needs a father. The mother can only do so much. Um, I'm not trying to say that there haven't been women who have not raised good sons. I'm not trying to say that at all. But by and large, they need a father. They need a good male role model in their life. This guy, you can guarantee, this guy had none whatsoever. No guy who's got a good role model as a man murders a 23-year-old little woman. No one. It just doesn't happen. But he's fatherless. His mom, probably had him out of wedlock, and he's just like any of these other kids on the streets, no dad to teach them how to be a man. Um, just gets involved in drugs. Drugs screw up his brain. If you want to talk about mental health, we can talk about mental health. Okay, I'm fine talking about it. But these people on the left talk about mental health like, you know, almost like it's always been there. You know, you kind of want to ask them. Doesn't it strike you again? This is the critical thinking stuff that people should start asking. Doesn't it strike you weird that we're all of a sudden having all this mental illness problem? Like, why is that? Has it always been that way, or is it just kind of recent? If it's always been that way, can you show me examples that show that this has just been always been part of it? It's like the transgender thing, right? And homosexuality. A lot of this homosexuality and transgender stuff, it only kind of recently started really popping up. I feel like there's correlation somewhere. Why is that? Was it always there and people just didn't say anything until now, or and if that's the truth, can you provide evidence for that? But I have a sneaky feeling that maybe a lot of the reasons why guys like this are riding on a tram constantly is we're screwing up. We can talk about mental illness and we got to address mental illness all we want, but we need to start asking this other question: how are we getting all this mental illness? What? It's just like the public education system right now. I mean, we're turning out millions of children a year and just sending them off into the world. Is society getting any better? Apparently not. Maybe there's something wrong with our education system, but we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And not only that, we seem to be just kind of doubling down on it and improving it, whatever that means, more and more and more, rather than going, guys, this experiment's not working. You would think after a couple of decades, you'd go, this doesn't work. We gotta do something different. But see, that's the thing is, even these judges, even the mayor here, I guarantee most of these people, because they're raised in the same system. They may not have all been publicly educated, but they're raised in the same essential system. And this thing is this: when you're raised in a particular way of thinking, like this guy here, it is extremely hard to break out of that form of thinking. It's part of you. You don't, I have experience with this, coming out of sort of the Reformed Christian world. You were just kind of molded to think in a certain way. And now I no longer exactly think that way. I mean, I still have certain um, um, parts of the Reformed world and the Calvinistic world that I still affirm, but I don't think strictly in those lines anymore. And when you kind of come out of that, you can kind of look from the outside in. But it's hard to get there. It's hard to get to that point. It's hard to start thinking outside of the paradigms that you've always been raised with, that you just grew up with. You just kind of assume certain things. You just assume this. You just take it for granted. And so that's what a lot of these people are. They just they're raised in a world where they're never taught that humans are basically evil, we're sinful in our core. They just think we're all really good people and blah 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 blah, and then bad things start happening because their paradigm doesn't allow for the possibility that humans are basically evil. They got to come up with different reasons why this is happening, and That's what happens, and that's one of the reasons why we have situations like this is what led, I think at least, what led to this man in this moment right here you're seeing on the screen. This is why this happens. This guy, what would happen if you were to look into this guy's past? His father, his father's father, and his father's father's father before that. What would we uncover about his family history? And I'm saying all that basically to say mental illness doesn't just pop out of nowhere. I do think that the mental illness is a part of it. I do think this guy was mentally ill, but it's not like he was just born that way. I don't think the vast majority of people are born mentally ill. If they were, if we had the mental illness we're having right now throughout all society, we wouldn't really be having a functioning society at this point. This is just, childhood abandonment, childhood neglect. This guy got involved with bad people, and they screwed him up. And here he is. And so the mental illness just doesn't come out of, it's not in a vacuum. There's a reason why it happens, and we have to address that reason. We have to address that if we're going to talk about mental illness. Now, I'm not trying to say that it was mental illness that made him do this. I do think there's a contributing factor to it. But obviously, this guy is just a freaking whack job. And I've been saying it since day one. I found out about this death penalty for this guy immediately. I don't even, there shouldn't really be much of a trial. It shouldn't take months to do the trial. It should take maybe a month, because you got it all on camera. You have him saying, I took out that white chick or whatever. You have him saying that. It's all on camera. You can convict him really fast, and then you don't have to wait years and decades for him to finally get put to death. This guy will get put to death in 30 some odd years. 30 years that this girl could have been married and have had children, and might have possibly, who knows, had children who had children, where he would finally be getting put down. Take this guy out back and just do it right then and there. Just get it over with. We don't need this guy anymore. He's a piece of trash. He's no. See, that's why I think you can have two sides. You can believe two things at the same time: that we have a serious mental health crisis in our society, and that people like this deserve to just get it. Sorry, he's a waste of air. That air belongs to better human beings, like this poor girl. There's nothing about this guy, at least in a societal context. There's nothing redeeming about him. Nothing. He contributes nothing to society. So I'm totally fine. I won't lose a modicum of sleep over knowing that this guy has just got, hey, we all right, sir, you're convicted. All right, take him out back and get it over with. Burn the body, whatever. Nobody cares. We don't care. Oh, the mom feels bad. Oh, that's too bad. Too damn bad. Too damn bad. There's a mom out there who's grieving. She's grieving the loss of her daughter. So, who's I'm sorry. I feel a little more sorry for that poor girl and her mom than your son. All due respect, man. Sorry, your son's a piece of trash and deserves it. So, and I'm sure his dad, I wonder if his dad's out there somewhere and he's seeing this. And I guarantee you, though, he's not going to say anything. You know why? Because if his dad was any good, he would never have walked out, left that boy, this guy when he was a boy. He would never have left him alone. But it's clear that the dad just didn't want anything to do with it. He just impregnates the mom and he just goes off with his life. Because, his dad's a piece of dirt too, probably. Most likely. So that's just the side. That's what it is. That's why we're in the situation right now, where we have men like this, a black man riding a tram. The black community is in shambles because of what happened in the civil rights movement, and then you have situations where the community becomes less and less educated. They become more and more susceptible to revolutionary ideals that actually are more detrimental to them and are lying to them, telling them lies, lies like what Mark Dice said, the kind of lies that this guy allegedly believed. I don't even know if he actually believed that. I think the dude was just totally whacked out of his mind and just decided, I'm just gonna go kill somebody. Maybe he was just like sick of life. His mom abandoned him, and he was just like, you know what? I'm so sick of everything. I'm just gonna kill somebody, get arrested, and then just whatever. Who knows? I don't know. But he's right here. An evil thug. He was brainwashed by endless propaganda from the mainstream media and charlatan black leaders they prop up into hating white people and believing we're all complicit in a conspiracy to keep the black man down, which is totally false, bonkers, and stupid. Yes, it's another thing too. It's like I was watching Uncle Tom too, and Jesse, what's his name? Forgot his name. Not Jesse Jackson, but I forgot his name. He's actually a good guy. He's black, and he's always constantly criticizing all these Black Lives Matter people. But he's interviewing this one guy. I don't know the guy's name, but he's interviewing this one guy, this black dude, talking about systemic racism and white supremacy and whiteness, kind of like it's got to end. But the guy will also say, no, I'm not trying to say that all white people are racist. I'm just talking about a system. And I'm sitting and I'm listening to it and I'm just going, my question would have been, what I would like to ask this guy, why do you call it whiteness then? Why call it whiteness? Well, it seems a little confusing. You're talking about whiteness and white supremacy or whatever. And I guess that's the idea because it's white supremacy. But still, you could be a little bit more clear. Because when you say stuff like that, a guy like you probably know how to distinguish things. You look like a well-educated man. But once again, the people who eat the stuff up, they're not. They don't know how to make categorical distinctions, none of that stuff like that. They don't do that kind of thing. Okay? So you should know that. And he probably does. So yet he continues to say things like that. Why? There's really no, it's like Steve Day says, what is the innocent, benign explanation for something like that? There are none. The reason why is because a guy like that black man, that young black man, whoever he was, some kind of leader in some organization or something like that, because he knows when he uses words like that, it's going to get the black people riled up. Because he probably, in his heart of hearts, is a racist. Probably. And he probably doesn't like white people. But he understands because he's the well-educated one. So he understands when you got to make the distinction between white people and when not. Because if you just say, I hate white people, then you're not going to get any traction. You've got to disguise it. But you still want to kind of get the crowds riled up, so you talk about whiteness and things like that, and blah blah blah, because it gets them riled up. Because I say all that because if this guy really believed a lot of what he was saying, that we don't hate white people, we don't dislike white people, we just think that they're part of the system and they benefit from a system of whiteness. That's basically what he said. If they really believe that, then when people like this guy stabs a woman to death, a white woman to death, people like this dude who was being interviewed would come out and condemn it immediately. No, this is horrible. This is wicked. We do not approve of any of this. This is not what we want. But you see them, they're all quiet. Why do you think they're all quiet? Because I think secretly, deep down, they really hate this young woman. And they foster this kind of behavior. Now, maybe they didn't want this to happen exactly like that, but they really don't like white people. These black leaders don't like white people. They really hate them. I mean, that's the only thing I can think anyway. And so what they do is they hide behind the rhetoric, and they'll be very, very, they conflate between two different ideas. They'll talk about, they'll be borderline racist, and then when you call them, hey, isn't that kind of racist? Then they'll conflate. That's when they conflate the words. They say, well, when I say whiteness, I'm talking about a system. I'm not talking about a people. It's like, well, it sounds kind of like you're talking about people to me. No. I'm just talking about a system in which these people are a part of. Well, it's like, well, then why do you use the word whiteness? Why can't you use a more clarifying word? Because it seems like you're confusing people. Because people like me are thinking that you're being racist, and then it seems like the people on your side agreeing too, and they're saying they hate white people. Well, we don't condone that kind of stuff like that. Well, again, people regurgitate the things that they hear from you as leaders. If you're a leader of people, it's up to you to guide these people. You're the shepherd, they're the sheep. You must guide them, and you must guide them properly. It seems to me it's like, again, so it's like Jesus. When Jesus says, you'll know them by their fruits, who they really are. What kind of fruits do they produce? That will tell you where they're really from. And if the fruits are bad, the one who's pruning those plants, you might say, are probably not good, because they're producing bad fruit. They're nourishing bad fruit. So, anyways, I just wanted to make a little video on that, and truly, truly tragic, terrible situation all around. This poor girl. Just, I mean, look at that face. That's just, that girl could be alive today. She could be alive. And you have here talks about that's her, by the way. This girl, in this article we read that she was apparently actually at one point she was in a bombing shelter in Ukraine. Can you imagine that? You go from a bombing shelter in Ukraine, you come to America to escape all that, just to get murdered by a piece of trash like this. I mean, and look at this guy. I mean, there's a part of this when you look at this, like, this guy is abandoned. Look, I know I'm not trying to be like over sympathize with him, but he looks. I mean, his mom kicked him out. Now he's just homeless. He's got no purpose in life. How did he end up like that? How did he end up there? He's got no dad to teach him how to be a man. He's got none of that stuff. Just none. And he just decides, I'm done. I'm done with all this. I think that's a lot of what might have been going through his head. And now she's dead, and because of him. And I'm not trying to say, oh, poor him. Again, I'm telling you, just bye-bye, end him. He's done. But I think if we're going to talk about how to prevent stuff like this, we need to start asking those questions about how did he end up like that? Drugs, fatherlessness, broken homes, a community that has been lied to by black propaganda. The Al Sharpton, those guys. I really think Al Sharpton has blood on his hands. I really do. I think he absolutely does. That Al Sharpton is a charlatan. He is, and this guy, I bet you, man, if we really did a dive into research about this guy, the money he makes when he goes and speaks at these events, he's making millions of dollars doing this, and he doesn't give a flip about any of these people. He don't care about any of them. Dude's making bucks, man. He's making bucks on their naivety, their useful idiotness, whatever. He doesn't care about them. Doesn't care at all. And that's why, honestly, guys like Al Sharpton, man, I mean, when he meets his maker, oh, the judgment that is going to befall him is going to be pretty wild. Because that man claims to be a man of God with the title Reverend. God holds accountable a particular accountability to those who claim those who take the responsibility of teaching his flock, teaching his people. Remember what Jesus said. If anyone, when he had that little child on his leg or his lap, whatever, I don't know, when he just presenting this child to people. Remember what he said, right? If any one of you causes just one of these little ones to sin, it would be better if that man had a millstone tied around his neck and be dropped in the middle of the ocean. And yeah, Jesus was definitely using a little hyperbole there, but there was a point. The most severe punishment for someone like that. That's what Al Sharpton's got waiting for him. He can enjoy his money right now. All that stuff. That's the thing with people who with wolves in sheep's clothing. They're not actually looking to heaven. They're making their kingdom right here. This is all they see. They don't really see anything beyond this. This is all they see. Sharpton's really an atheist. He's really an atheist, disguised as a Christian, or some kind of whatever. That's really what he is. And yeah, there's going to be judgment for him for sure. So let me just read here real quick. Brown was arrested after he was released from the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries sustained at the time of the incident, and was charged with first-degree murder, according to the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. So the 34-year-old suspect has a criminal record including larceny and breaking and entering charges. He also spent 5 years in prison for robbery with a dangerous weapon starting in 2015, according to the North Carolina Department of Adult Correction. 14 arrests in the past, including an arrest in January, was still on the streets leading up to the attack. Yeah, that stuff has to stop too. This is the kind of stuff that has to stop. 14 times? I mean, after, people have been saying after 3, you should just go ahead and we should just go ahead and end your misery. And I agree. I think after 3 charges, three convictions, for whatever it is, just like, okay, you know what, this isn't working out. Bye-bye. Imagine the fear that would put in criminals. That would definitely might set some people straight. It's not going to completely stop crime. People are just evil is just going to be evil, but it's going to probably significantly reduce it. So, anyways, officials said Zarutzka, who had worked at a senior citizen center, a pizza place, took care of animals in the neighborhood, and had just recently moved in with her partner, will be buried in the United States even after the Ukrainian embassy reached out to her family. No, she loved America. We will bury her here, her family said, according to Ferguson. It's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. This girl came here because she wanted the American dream, and she got this instead. And you know, this is the thing. The reason why this is here, this kind of guy, liberal democratic policies. That's why. That's why that is. That's why she's dead. I mean, it's him, but there are culprits to this. There's layers to this. And these people need to be held accountable too. They need to be held accountable. Judges need to be just fired. Yeah, you know, at least that. I mean, I could think of other things too. I mean, fired, job lost, reputation tarnished forever, tarred and feathered. Just basically reduce these judges to the only kind of work they'll ever be able to get for the rest of their life is just some freaking cashier at a sad little supermarket for the rest of their life. I'm totally down with that. Make them suffer. Tar and feather. We need to bring that stuff back. Bring that back. Okay. This whole sympathy for these people. I don't have sympathy for him. I have sympathy for the situation that could have been avoided that put him there. That's what I have sympathy for, if that makes any sense. But anyways, I'm going on too long. I will talk to you all later. Bye.